Welcome back. We're going to move on to lesson 10.3, which is circumference of a circle. There are probably a few spots in this video that you're going to have to just pause, maybe get caught up, and then just hit play again because it probably moves a little bit quickly. So in order to understand circumference, we have to understand parts of a circle. So we're going to start by drawing a circle, and we're going to label the different parts. And then this is probably a good idea to put this into your yellow folder. So yellow journal for this one, or your math journal. So we're going to label this as the center, of course. The center is the same distance from all the sides. That's what makes it the center. And then we have a line that goes from, if we have a line that goes from the center to the outside edge, that is called the radius. Again, it goes from the center to the edge. A line that goes from all the way across the circle through the center is called a diameter. We call that line a diameter. And there's also another line, something that looks like this. It goes from one edge to the other. That goes from one side to one edge to the other, but it does not cross through the center, and that's called a chord. You'll see that once in a while as well. So, but the difference is the diameter goes through the center of the circle. Now we're going to move on to what we mean by circumference. So when we talk about circumference, we're talking about the distance is equal to the distance around a circle, the edges. Distance around the edges. And so if we have our circle, it's basically the distance around the outside edges. And I like to use the analogy that circumference is to a circle as perimeter is to let's say a square or a rectangle. So it's the distance around. So in order to calculate circumference, we need to know the ratio of any circle's circumference to its diameter is always going to be this ratio. So 22 to 7, which means that, or we can write it like this, or we can say 22 to 7. We know about ratios. And this is the circumference, and this is the diameter. So the ratio of circumference to diameter is always the same in any circle. Now this ratio can also be written as a decimal number, which is 3.14, which is also called pi. And you maybe have heard of that, which it's pi is how the name came about. There's also a Greek letter. The letter pi is equal to 3.14, and a Greek mathematician called Pi came up with this calculation. So that's why there's the symbol for pi, and the decimal number is 3.14. But again, basically it represents the same amount as the ratio of 22 to 7 for a circle. So our formula to find circumference is with a C. So the formula is C is equal to pi times diameter. And that's how we calculate the circumference, or the distance around the edges of the circle. All right, let's move on to some examples of this. I'm going to turn the page now. And so let's find, like, for example, the circumference of a pop can. And so we have a pop can that, if we measured around, the diameter basically is equal to about 2 inches. Okay, so we'll draw our diameter, and that's about 2 inches. And keep in mind our formula, circumference is equal to pi times the diameter, which in this case is 2. So we say 3.14 times 2. If we calculate it off to the side, so 3.14 times 2 is equal to 6.28. You can calculate that. And so 6.28. And we have inches. And so we would say that our circumference is equal to 6 2/8 inches. And just like we do with perimeter, we just simply are measuring the unit of measurement, but because this is not area, we don't put anything like a squared label on it. So let's do another example. Let's say we have a circle with a diameter of, let's say the diameter is equal to 14 feet. Now, because 14 is a multiple of 7, we could use the ratio to calculate the circumference of this. Sometimes it might be a little bit faster, and there's 2 options in your lesson of how to calculate circumference. But so we could say that circumference is equal to 22/7, which is pi, times the diameter, which is 14. And in order to write 14 as a fraction, like a ratio, basically it looks like that. Now, this is something that we done before when we've been multiplying ratios and fractions and that kind of thing. We can cross simplify by dividing by 7. So we get 1 and 2 there. And then if we just multiply straight and cross like we have in the past, we get 44 over 1, which is simplified to be 44. And in this case, we're talking about feet, so 44 feet. So circumference is equal to 44 feet. Now, you might want to replay that example just to kind of maybe get it, get your head around it. So again, 2 ways to calculate circumference. We can use calculate circumference using the formula with pi, 3.14, and we can also, if the diameter is a multiple of 7, we can use the ratio of 22/7 to calculate the circumference as well. So that's a couple options that you have. Let's move on to some more examples. Need some more space, so I'll turn the page. Let's say we have a circle. I always draw your circle so you kind of have a visual in front of you. And we have, and this circle has a diameter of, let's say, 10. So diameter equals 10, we'll say 10 feet. Okay? And we want to, again, our circumference is equal to pi times diameter. In this case, the diameter is 10, it's not a multiple of 7, so we're going to calculate it using pi. And so pi, 3.14, times the diameter of 10. And again, this is a pretty easy one because we're just dealing with a decimal number, but you can multiply it off the side as well. So 3.14, of course, is, if you calculate it, is 31.440, or 31.4. So we would say that our circumference is equal to 31.40, and it's labeled feet, and we box it in. And again, if that went a little bit too fast, make sure you go back and replay that. Let's try a couple more examples. In this case, we have a circle, and we're going to say with the diameter of 35 kilometers. And 35 kilometers, since 35 is a multiple of 7, another maybe quicker way to calculate the circumference would be to use the ratio. So we would say circumference is equal to the ratio 22/7 times the diameter, which is 35 in this case. So we would say, turn that into a fraction so we can multiply it. And then, just like we've done in the past, we would cross simplify by dividing by 7, which gives you 1 and 5. And if you multiply 5 times 22, you know that you get 110. 1 times 1, of course, is 1. And so simplified, that is equals, we can say that circumference, in this case, is equal to 110 kilometers. Now sometimes you'll have a circle and they'll give you the radius. So in this case we have a circle with a radius of, let's say, 2 inches. This is a small number, we know, but if we have 2 inches, now this is the radius, of course, but our formula is circumference is equal to pi times diameter. So if our radius is 2 inches, that means that our diameter would be equal to 4 inches all the way across the circle. So we would say that in this case pi 3.14 times our diameter, which is 4 inches in this case. We'd have to multiply that across, so over the side you'd have 3.14 times 4, which is, we'll multiply this out quickly, and we'll add it up, put our decimal in 2 places to the left, 1, 2, and we get 12.56, and this is inches, which means that our circumference is equal to 12 and 5/56 inches. And again, if you need to replay that, go ahead and replay that if necessary to get the idea, if that went too fast. All right. Now, your assignment will be on page 487 today for this lesson. And if you have more questions on how to do circumference, you can ask in class. And that would be all for this lesson.